Hey guys, I'm back with another update from what I've been up to this summer. It's Friday morning and I've got the day off, so I just shot a video of the CDs I picked up recently at thrift stores and whatnot. So now I'm going to do a video of the vinyl. And picked up quite a bit of vinyl recently, just hitting the thrift shops, just try to kind of make the circuit around town, hit the different thrift shops, different one or two each day, and just kind of keep hitting them and keep hitting them. That's my strategy, and occasionally you get lucky and find some cool stuff. And as well, the Second and Charles store in town, kind of like Half Price Books, they moved a lot of stuff from their value vinyl section, which is like, you know, $1 to $4, into a couple dollar bins. So they've been trying to unload a lot of their used vinyl, and so there's been some cool stuff in there. So I'll just hop into it here. Picked up a few records from the Goodwill near where I work. One of them that caught my eye is one by Bill Doggett. It's called Oops, The Swinging Sounds of Bill Doggett and His Combo. He's kind of an R&B guy, but he plays the organ, I think the Hammond organ. I'm not sure if that's a Hammond organ on the front there. It doesn't look, I don't know. But yeah, more R&B. He's not really a jazz guy, but you know, good player. I've got another record of his. I can't remember the title, but he doesn't. It doesn't always feature the Hammond organ. I think a lot of the stuff on this he's playing piano, but still try to pick these up. I try to pick up anything that it's not just cheese. Anything that's on the organ. Different musicians. I really like the sound of that. It's kind of like the Vibes, vibraphone. Love the sound of that, or jazz guitarists. So you know, they're 3 for $1, so I picked it up. Figure I'd give it a shot. And didn't really see a whole lot of other stuff that I wanted from the store that day, but there were a couple that just looked kind of odd and not really the kind of thing I normally buy by any means. But figure I'd pick them up and give them a listen. This is country music. It's kind of like the colors and stuff on that cover look pretty cool. Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs with the Foggy Mountain Boys. So this is some old hillbilly country music. My dad was actually a hillbilly, born in Tennessee, I think, and grew up in Kentucky. And joined the Navy in between Korea and Vietnam. Came out of the Navy and I guess drove, or probably not drove, he didn't have a car. I guess took a train or hitchhiked or something, got to Michigan, and enrolled in the University of Michigan. And this hillbilly became, he got his bachelor's, master's, and his PhD at the University of Michigan. So not bad for a hillbilly. Definitely accomplished a lot more in his life than I have so far, but you know, I'm proud of my dad. Passed away a few years ago from cancer, but pretty impressive for a hillbilly to you know, get his PhD in electrical engineering. I went to work for some defense contractors. But whenever I see this kind of stuff, you know, and as a kid I used to hate any kind of country music or hillbilly music, and you know, something that always kind of bothered me about, you know, my dad's hillbilly roots. Like, I didn't want people to pick on me and say, like, you know, my dad was a hillbilly, or I kind of have a little bit of the Ohio sound in my voice, and I used to say roof. You know, top of the house is the roof. People be like, what'd you say? I say roof. I guess that's an Ohio thing. So I finally learned to say roof. And let's see. Another country one. This is Jimmy Martin and the Sunny Mountain Boys. You know, it just looks like some trucking music here. Jimmy Martin and Sunny Mountain Boys sing Widowmaker. Like that. It's nice. You know, it's some hillbilly country music. Figure I'd give it a listen. Whatever. So, the Goodwill, let's see. Okay, I'd got a text message or saw in this video that Wes here in town had been to Goodwill, the big Goodwill in town, and he said they had some cool jazz stuff. He picked up some jazz stuff. And so I went a day or a couple days later to see maybe if anything was left, pick through the remains. This store tends to turn stuff over on a fairly regular basis, but they have a huge pile of records, probably about 200-300 records that just kind of sit there, maybe even more. And the problem is when people dig through, everything gets shuffled in, so you literally have to go through about 200 records to see what's new. But dug through and found some of the probably the remnants of what he found. And based on what I found, I'm kind of curious about what he found because it's some pretty decent stuff. Excuse me. So this one, this is kind of funny, but it's Oliver Lake and Jump Up. And it's kind of a reggae type thing called Dance Vision on the Blue Heron label. Now, I've never heard of this band or the Blue Heron label, but I've heard of Oliver Lake. He's a member of the World Saxophone Quartet. Kind of a avant-garde type jazz player. Alto and soprano sax here. Brandon Ross on guitar. I recognize his name. But yeah, it's kind of a funk reggae type thing. It's not horrible. I thought maybe it would be, just kind of based on the artwork. Like, oh God, you know, is it some feel-good, happy reggae music? But it's all right. I'll give it some more listens. But I saw the name Oliver Lake and I'm like, well, that's good because that's not your run-of-the-mill stuff. He's kind of out there. And then I saw this record, still in the shrink, some Steve Lacy, Momentum, yeah, on the Novus label, which I guess was associated with RCA. And of course I heard of Steve Lacy, not your typical run-of-the-mill sax player here. But the problem was there was no record in it. And I was like, ah, crap. So I set it aside and dug through, and what I found, there were about 4 or 5 different albums, like old classical albums or easy listening. And whoever works there in the back had just, I guess, taken anything that was loose and just shoved it in these sleeves. So you'd have about 4 records in the thing. And after going through about 3 of these, the last one, I'm digging through, and sure enough, I find the record that that belongs in the thing. It's a little scuffed up, a little, you know, taking a little wear from, you know, being out of its original jacket here, but still pretty cool to have. I didn't have any Steve Lacy in the collection, so that was cool. And like I said, it's not your typical jazz thing you see, so I'm real curious about what Wes found. And then this other one, it'd be real easy to pass by. You wouldn't even necessarily catch that it's a jazz-related thing, except it says the 4 seasons, Vivaldi's 4 Seasons in Jazz. And I recognize some of the players here. Johnny Griffin on tenor sax, Arthur Taylor on drums, Art Taylor, and then Jimmy Wood I didn't recognize, but I guess he played in like Count Basie's band or Duke Ellington's band or something. Jimmy Wood on bass. So this is a nice stereo pressing, kind of a cheesy cartoony cover. I guess the French and maybe UK pressings of this, they had like photographs here of the different seasons. But it's actually pretty interesting. It's a French band, Raymond Fall, big band, I guess based out of France. And what it was, the musicians, Johnny Griffin, Art Taylor, they were in Europe playing at the time, or living and playing. And so he kind of recruited them to round out his band. There's another guy playing vibes on here. And some pretty cool arrangements, pretty neat stuff. So pretty excited to find this. Nothing I would kind of pick out in a record store at full price, but I gave it a shot for $1 and really kind of enjoying it. So that was Goodwill. And then Second and Charles, like I said, the big, they're like secondhand books. I think that's the name of the store. But it's a big store that sells CDs and records, used books, all that. You know, they got a couple dollar bins now. They're trying to clear out all their old inventory. I think they're kind of feeling the bite of not selling much vinyl, especially their new vinyl, you know, pricey reissues. I don't think it's working out for them, maybe. So they're trying to clear out a lot of stuff. They've rearranged their vinyl racks, but kind of excited to see a lot of stuff that was priced $2 to $4 they're selling now for $1. So picked up several things from there, and I think Wes has been, or I know Wes has been also. So some jazz. I already had a copy of this, Arthur Blythe, sax player, Illusions. But I figured for $1 I'd pick up another copy. Got some great players on here. James Blood Ulmer on guitar, one of my favorites. Abdul Wadud on cello. Yeah. But anyway, it's when I took it out, got home and checked it out, it's on the, it's a CBS New Zealand pressing. which is kind of cool. Whoops. I always like to get foreign pressings, just check out the sound quality, check out the different labels, things like that. It's always kind of neat. And some more jazz from Roulette, The Best of Basie, Volume 2. Nice collection of stuff. I guess these are newer recordings from the 60s of tracks of his from the 30s and 40s. Got new interpretations. So that's pretty cool. And stereo. At first I saw stereo and I thought, well, these are all, the dates they give on the back are all from the late 30s and 40s. I thought, well, it's fake stereo, but they're, you know, recordings, I think, in the early 60s of their classic tracks. So pretty cool. And then some real, honest to goodness old stuff. This is the Carnegie Hall concerts from 1938 and 39, organized by John Hammond, who was the guy at Columbia Records who really brought some big jazz names to Columbia Records and really championed jazz at that label. And so, yeah, from 38 and 39, it's called Swing Concert. It's on the 51 West label, which is like a subsidiary of Columbia, probably like a budget label. But anyway, it's the Benny Goodman Sextet, Count Basie's band, and the Kansas City Six. But you got some great musicians on here. In Benny Goodman's band, you've got Charlie Christian on guitar, Lionel Hampton on vibes, Count Basie's band, Lester Young on sax, Buck Clayton, Harry Edison on trumpets. The Kansas City Six, Buck Clayton on trumpet, Lester Young on tenor sax, Charlie Christian on guitar, Freddie Green on guitar, Joe Jones on drums. So a nice little, nice older jazz there. Figured I'd give it a shot. I'm starting to really work my way back into the history of jazz here. And then this one I picked up. I'd seen it before and been curious, but I didn't want to pay more than like $1 for it. So finally, when it was $1, I'm like, pulled the trigger. This is Dave Baby Cortez, the Happy Organ it's called, and this is on the Design label. It's just kind of like a budget cheapy label that I guess licensed and reissued other people's stuff. You can kind of see on the back some of the different artists they've reissued or whatever. And so I wasn't expecting a whole lot, but somebody kept this in good shape. They've got it in one of these kind of like a Blake sleeve, but you know, before Blake sleeves are around. Kept it in really nice shape, but when I took it out and played it, it had some really bad like pops, crackles, even a skip. And so I cleaned, and even though it looked beautiful, I cleaned it up like 3 times, you know, scrubbed it, vacuumed it on the machine, took out the Audio Intelligent number 15 cleaner, which seems to really get in the clean stuff out good, and just nothing fixed it. It's just a bad pressing, which makes sense because it's kind of a cheapy label design. Which is a shame. You know, I just wanted to hear, you know, he's I guess famous for the tune The Happy Organ. It was kind of one of the first hit songs on the radio or whatever that featured the Hammond organ. So it's kind of like a little organ ditty, but that's the track that skips so bad. So kind of a letdown. A lot of the other stuff he's just playing piano on the track, so kind of a bummer. And then some classical, just my first Command classics. Figure I'd pick up one of those. And some Living Stereo. A couple more Living Stereos. Classical. Give them a shot. Everest, nice good classical label, is an early Everest pressing here. And they used they're one of the labels like Command that used the 35mm film, I guess, to back up the magnetic tape, which solved some of the problems with like wow and flutter and things like that. And they had wider tape to record on. So kind of a high fidelity quality recording there. And this one caught my eye because in the title it says, you can see here, this is on the Angel label, I think. Yeah, we got a whole lot of Angel classical recordings now, but Roberto Gerhard Collages, Symphony No. 3 for electronic tape and orchestra. Yeah, as soon as I saw electronic tape, I'm like, alright, that's cool. I gotta have that one. And just gonna try to go through these pretty quick. Very old recordings here. This woman playing Johann Sebastian Bach. I think these are from the 30s. So some old archive recordings from EMI. It's kind of cool. I'll skip through that. Some rock stuff. I've heard of this guy before. I had one of his albums years and years ago. I think it was his first album. Didn't really like it, but I figured I'd give him another chance. Canadian prog rock kind of guy here. This is Gowan. Larry Gowan. It's an album called Strange Animal, and it actually features guys from Peter Gabriel's band, Tony Levin on bass and stick, David Rhodes on guitar, Jerry Marotta on drums. Gold stamp promo. This doesn't really mean a whole lot to me, but the album's pretty good. I've been listening to it a few times. It's not, the mixing isn't as aggressive as like Peter Gabriel stuff. The guitar doesn't have as much bite. It's a little more clean and polished in the 80s, kind of light synthy, but pretty good songs. And then his follow-up album, Great Dirty World, another gold stamp promo. So been giving those a listen, trying to get into them. And then some jazz. Let's see here. Grady Tate. I'd seen this album for quite a while in the budget bins for, I don't know, $4 or so. I recognize the name because he is the he was the drummer for Jimmy Smith. Some of his albums, like on Verve, and you know, some different jazz musicians. You know, you see his name as the drummer, but he was also a singer, and a pretty good singer. And Ron Cutter's on bass on this one, and it's produced by Gary McFarland. Kind of a big arranger guy. Did some stuff on Impulse, I think. And this is on the Sky label. Kind of an odd label. They released some stuff by Gabor Szabo and Cal Tjader. So I figured I'd give it a chance. It's very mellow, kind of like Johnny Mathis, Nat King Cole, but I'm enjoying it. Vocal jazz had never really been my thing for years and years, but I'm starting to get into it. And he's also, he recorded the vocals on some of the old Schoolhouse Rock videos. Some of the ones dealing with, I think, mathematics and things like that. So, pretty cool. This is on the A&M Horizon label, which the records always have kind of a neat gatefold that, you know, opens up, and it's got a lot of different notes about the recordings. There's like a kind of a graphical chart here about one of their tracks and when the different parts come in. On the back, it's got a big sort of matrix of all the different musicians and what tracks they play on. Kind of silly, but and then the albums on these always slide out from the inside, which it's always kind of bothered me. It seems like it's a recipe for disaster, but yeah, things are gonna get scraped up doing that. But I haven't really been disappointed with anything I've picked up on the A&M Horizon label. This one I wasn't sure about. I should say the title. This is Tad Jones and Mel Lewis, Suite for Pops. And if you haven't kind of figured out, that's kind of painting of Louis Armstrong on the cover there, Pops. And so it's sort of a tribute to Louis Armstrong, but not totally. It's kind of got a big band sound. There's a whole lot of musicians on here, a lot of brass, but there's also some electric piano and a woman singing, real soulful. Kind of got a fusion-y sound, so pretty neat. I'm actually really enjoying this one. I wasn't sure, but everything I've picked up in this label, I've got some Dave Liebman, sax guy, a couple albums by him, and I've actually got on CD a Don Cherry Brown Rice album. That's great. And some old Verve jazz, Kai Winding, or Winding, I think it's Winding. Kai Winding's Trombones and Orchestra. This is Kai Olay. Nice, you know, typical Verve shiny gatefold here. This one is actually in really good shape. I think Phil Woods plays on here, flute and sax. Just nice stuff. Kind of him doing the Latin thing with his arrangements. A lot of trombones and flute, some Latin percussion. And then this one's pretty cool. Actually, I I mentioned in my other video I run into this guy named Ted. He used to run a record shop here in town, and I tend to run into him at the thrift shop. He does the circuit like I does, just checking out and seeing what's there. And so he happened to be in the store at the same day, you know, one of my visits there, and we're both digging through these records. And he pointed this one out to me, and I just zipped right by it, didn't even think much of it. It's music from '77 Sunset Strip, based on the TV show. And it's kind of cool. It's on the Lion label, which I guess is it's a MGM subsidiary, MGM Records, but it's kind of cool because it's in the original inner sleeve there, or outer sleeve, I'm sorry. Plastic outer, it's a little beat up, but it's kind of cool just to have the original thing. But it's the Aaron Bell Orchestra, which I hadn't really heard of. I guess he's a bass player. But he pointed out to me on the back some of the musicians. So you've got Ray Bryant on piano, Kenny Burrell on guitar, Eddie Costa on vibes, and Oliver Jackson Jr. on drums. So I'm like, damn, that's a pretty good lineup. And he said he already had it on vinyl, or already had a record, so he asked me if I wanted it. I'm like, yeah, I'll take it. So that was pretty cool. I always like to find stuff where it's like, it's not one of the big popular titles, but it's got the good musicians. Kenny Burrell's one of those musicians I think recorded a lot of stuff on the West Coast, and weren't big name productions. He was kind of a session player out there, so occasionally you'll find stuff that he plays on that's kind of a neat find. And then I did pick up some more classical and stuff at Second Charles. I'm not going to show all that, but I'll show this one. This one's kind of cool. It's a box set, RCA Red Seal. And of course, like most box sets that have been through the thrift stores, it's falling apart, but the cover is really nice on this. Arturo Toscanini. This is 9 Beethoven symphonies with the NBC Symphony Orchestra. So when I opened it up, I saw inside it still had the original booklet with a whole bunch of notes about the different symphonies, and then it's got a list of all Toscanini's different recordings on RCA. There's a whole lot of them. And then I started going through the records, and I noticed they're still like in these original kind of wax paper looking sleeves. On one of the sides it said side 13. I thought, oh god, that probably means there's at least 7 records. And I'm like, I'm not sure all 7 records are still here. So I started to go through and count, and sure enough, there's all 7 records in here still. I assume it's 7 records. I haven't looked it up on Discogs, but 7 records. They're all in beautiful shape. I don't know if stuff had even ever been played, but $1. 7 records for $1. Can't beat that. So that was Second and Charles, digging through their new dollar bin there. And then the Salvation Army in town, they've I guess they're trying to unload a lot of crap. They've got so much stuff, and they've cut the prices on their vinyl to 10 cents a record, which is great. So I picked up a whole bunch of classical records, but I'm not going to show all that. A lot of stuff on Angel, a lot of old Columbia Masterworks, RCA Red Seal, things like that. But they had I saw one time I was there buying records, they had a sign on the door that said warehouse sale this Saturday. So I went to this warehouse sale, and it happened to be, one of these days. It's been just in the mid-90s for the longest time here in Florida. So it's like in the mid-90s. It's about 10 in the morning. I'm there, and this warehouse out back, big huge warehouse, and there's this stuff piled everywhere. And I'm just sweating from the minute I walk back there. And they've got records like piled everywhere. I think there were about 10 different piles of records and stuff piled on top of the records. So I'm digging through, and I'm finding a few things, but as I'm finding them and leaning over, digging through, the sweat is literally like dripping off my forehead onto the records I'm picking out. So I keep having to like wipe with my arm, wipe the sweat off the records so they don't get all water damage from my own sweat. Pretty brutal experience, but found some neat stuff. Mostly what I picked up was classical. A lot of cool classical stuff, but I picked up a few things that weren't. And I was kind of excited to find these 3. These are Frank Sinatra records. Frank Sinatra at the Sands with the Count Basie Orchestra. Count Basie and his orchestra. Double album thing here on Reprise, I think. Yeah. And let's see, Days of Wine and Roses, Moon River, and other Academy Award winners. Frank Sinatra. Looks like it's arranged by Nelson Riddle. Stereo pressing on Reprise. And Come Fly With Me. Frank Sinatra with Billy May and his orchestra on Capitol, I think. Yeah, this one's on Capitol. These are all in really nice shape. I was kind of excited to find that. Haven't really collected any Frank Sinatra, but sometimes I see like 3 or more things by an artist, I'll be like, okay, now I'll get into it, because I have a little collection. Andre Previn. This, you see his stuff in every thrift store, and it's usually kind of easy listening, pops type arrangements, classical stuff. But this one, he was also into jazz, played jazz piano on the West Coast with different people. So this one is the Andre Previn Trio. It's him on piano with Red Mitchell on bass and Frankie Capp on drums. And it's called The Light Fantastic, a tribute to Fred Astaire. And it's actually really good. It kind of reminds me of Vince Guaraldi, the West Coast jazz player, did the music like for the Peanuts cartoons. Kind of got that same sort of sound. And let's see what else. Switched on Bach 2, Walter Carlos. That's kind of cool. Didn't have that one. King Crimson, Lark's Tongues and Aspic. Of course, I picked this one up. Unfortunately, it's scuffed up enough where it's just not really enjoyable to listen to. This album's got a lot of quiet parts. It's very dynamic. It's got quiet and loud, but the quiet stuff, the scuffs just kind of kill it. So that's kind of a shame, but you know, stick it on the wall or something. And let's see what else. Some Chet Atkins. Pick up a lot of Chet Atkins. Christmas with Chet Atkins. Living Stereo. This is a later pressing, but yeah, it's on the kind of the orange label, more modern label. And just a couple of the classical things I found. This little 45 RPM EP on RCA, Arturo Toscanini, doing the William Tell Overture and the Semiramide Overture. I'm not sure that's how it's pronounced, but kind of cool little package here. On the back it talks about what the 45 EP is. And then some early RCA Victor classical. It almost looks like they weren't sure what to do with the cover, or like maybe originally it was a 10-inch, so they just kind of pasted on a background with the same color. There's another one. Just kind of interesting. Probably not the best sounding recordings, best sounding pressings or anything. I'll give it a shot. Some early mono classics. And this is kind of neat. Westminster. Didn't have anything on the Westminster label. Figured I'd check it out. It's supposed to be a pretty hi-fi classical label. So that was kind of cool. So that's it. I bought probably 50 classical records in this warehouse sale and from the store for like 5 to 10 cents a piece. So that was pretty cool. Been building a pretty huge classical collection. Yeah. So that's my recent vinyl pickups. You know, it's been hitting the thrift shops, dollar bins, seeing what's out there, and yeah.